Hello everyone. Just checking something. 1, 2. Yeah, we're good. Right. Don't normally film from the back, but I just wanted to show. I'm having a gardening day today, so I've been in the garden all afternoon tidying up some things and planting a few things. So I haven't. So I'm wobbling a bit because I'm tired. I haven't planted this, but I'm hoping it doesn't get nailed because it's an elderflower bush or elder bush, and I want to collect the flowers and maybe some berries later in the season, but I won't get any if it gets chopped, so hoping it survives. Anyway, so you can just about see it's starting to bud up. It's looking lush at the moment, so fingers crossed. So anyway, this will be very much a gardening themed Sandra makes. We'll see how far we get. It's quite a big area, so you can do quite a lot, and there might not be that much to show for it. But anyway, I'll just talk you through what I've been up to. So this will be another clematis, which was by the greenhouse. But I've moved it up here to clear more space on the patio by the greenhouse. This is a rather glorious, huge flowered clematis. So I've got a new stand for it to grow up. Last year it was so heavy that the whole thing collapsed. So that's not new, but it's just for people who are new to the channel, shall we say. This is part of the forsythia that was around the back of the property. We had to dig them out for various reasons, so I've stuck a few in around the garden in the hope that at least some of them survive, and we'll see what happens. So I've sort of put the root in, so hopefully they'll grow up again from the root, but I don't know, we'll see. Here we've got another clematis, and snugged in there a bit of an escapee Rose of Sharon, so I may actually remove that Rose of Sharon at some point, because it doesn't really matter, but it's neither here nor there really, but it's a bit of a random spot amongst other things. Might at least move it further up or something, I'm not sure. And then this was just it was actually a little bit of privet that I had bought to go back. In our old property there was a gap in our hedge over there, so that was what I bought that for, but obviously we ended up moving, so I thought I might as well stick it in here. So basically the general plan is to try and get a little bit more green happening along this fence on this side, on our side. So it would have been all hedge originally, and I know it's a lot of work to maintain a hedge, but it is good for the wildlife. So a bit of greenery and not just the fence. Anyway, so on this side, these are that's the line of privet that Neil put in, so that'll give us a little bit more privacy in the winter. So obviously this is beautiful. This is the mix of honeysuckle and clematis, so it looks beautiful in the summer and the spring, but it's a bit bare in the winter, so we're going to have a bit more hedging on this side for a bit more privacy at the back. Oh, yeah, this had all bushes in before, so yeah, so the bushes are now gone, but we do have what looks like probably bluebells coming up. Oh, and I forgot to say, as well as the hedge, I found another little clump of snowdrops. So these snowdrops have a double flower. I don't know how well you can see that. So most of the snowdrops here seem to be double flowered and I like single flowered, so I have bought one pot of single flowered which will establish and spread, which I'll show you shortly. Right, and then round on this side. So I have spoke about this a bit before, but for people that are new, okay, so in this corner, this again, it's a very established clematis and or honeysuckle, or a bit of both. Ooh, as you can see, it's a bit dead. I'm not quite sure why, but there doesn't seem to be much growth from this part. So I've put in a climbing rose. That's actually a bit of yew, just because I like yew. That's another clematis in the pot that was on the other side, and I've just dug that in now to give it a bit more green at this end. I think that's it. Oh, and this will be a really lovely peony. So you're meant to cut it back hard over winter, and then it's, you know, you can see anyway it's starting to bud up. So I'm sure that'll do just fine. Ooh. And then the soil that I dug out to bury the clematis, there's a little bit of a dip in the garden there, so I've just raked that in there, and then that'll grass over and look just fine. And then along this edge we've got, so that's a little holly bush that I rescued from the back where we dug out the big bush, whatever that, I'm not too sure what the big bush was, but we had a random big bush at the back and a random big bush about where the dip is. We just decided not to keep those, start fresh. And that's another bit of forsythia that may or may not take. And then that's a flowering rose as opposed to more of a standard rose. This is a bit of raspberry because I had too many on the other side. Can't remember what that was. I think it might have been a rose, a wild rose. And then that was another bit of forsythia. This plant has winter flowers, not sure what it's called, but anyway, a bit of colour. And that's another rose of Sharon. And then that's quite an established rose that we've kept but cut back quite hard. And then, whoops, just tripping over the fountain. And then there's a couple of little roses here that were at the back. I'm going to stick those somewhere in the garden, but I haven't decided where yet. Here we've got a strawberry plant, mallow, some wallflowers, and another bit of forsythia, which again may or may not take. Now then, so I haven't done too much on this middle part. That'll do for now. But I did just uncover it's a very early primula here. It's been flowering quite nicely, but it was rather buried amongst all the bulbs that have kind of got a bit too prolific. So when I take out more of the bulbs, but I need to know first of all what the bulbs are to some extent. But anyway, I dug out a clump there, and then I thought, oh, I know, maybe stick them on the grass at the front, because it's like, you know, it doesn't matter too much if they survive or not, they're just leftovers. And then I realised there are more snowdrops out here as well, so not on this side, sorry. So these are transplanted from the other side, and then I put some random bulbs down the end. Yes, again, these snowdrops are transplanted, but these snowdrops were here already, so I just thought it'd be nice to have another clump. So you've got a clump here, and then we'll have a clump further down as well. So anyway, so I'm taking you over now to, okay, so we've still got a nice clump of snowdrops there as well, but the ones that were right by my new raised bed we're just going to get lightly stood on anyway. So this is my main work today. So I've transplanted some things that I saved from last autumn, which were just stuck in the corner here, and then just quickly going around. So what's the easiest way to do this? I'll start on this side, I guess. So we've got so I've still got some herbs and things planted along the edge. I've just put one of the mulleins in the centre just to see how it does. We've got the rhubarb on the far side. That's my gooseberry. I've got several stems of raspberry, so they're different varieties. So there will be summer, well, early summer, late summer, autumn fruiting eventually could be established. That's a rather magnificent red currant, so I was enjoying a bit of the red currant wine and thinking I'm going to miss my red currants. So anyway, so I ordered that, didn't pay a lot for it. It's huge, which I wasn't expecting anyway. So we've got that, so we've got the gooseberry, raspberry, red currants, and then there's a bit of comfrey, which is still dormant at the moment, but it will be there. So the raspberries. This is actually a foxglove, but the main content of the pot was horseradish. Let's see around the other side. So that, well, I'll keep the foxglove anyway, and then the horseradish is mixed in there. And then coming back, I've got a bit more raspberry. This is going to be a black currant, so I've been missing my black currant jam too, so that we good to get a black currant going with raspberry. And last but not least, the simply early rhubarb. So right, so that's what I've been up to. So anyway, so that's what I've been up to. I've been out here for probably about 3 hours, so I feel like I've not done a lot in some ways. But anyway, but it feels like, well, I do feel like I've done a lot in many ways, but it feels like there's not a lot to show for it, put it that way. Anyway, so early days, but good to be making progress. So this is more the woody type things that I needed to get in before they start growing for the season, and I'll be putting in more herbs. I've got some sage to go in there and a few bits still to go in. We've got the garlic, some chives, some other things. It'd be nice to pop in and see what survives the rabbits is the other question. Right, so anyway, so that's what I've been up to in the garden today. I hope you found that interesting. Do comment below, and we'll continue inside a bit later. Good morning. It's the weekend. I've finished work for the week, and I've also finished work for my first full half term in my new job. So it's going pretty well. I'm enjoying it. It's a really nice place to work, so it's all going fine, but I am ready for a week off. So a couple of people were asking how's the hat going. So the hat is finished. So it's really stuck with Shetland wool. It's lovely and warm and cosy. I'm sort of quite pleased how that's turned out. And I've started to make a scarf to go with it as well, which I'll film that a little bit later. We're about to pop out, so I can't do that now. What I've also done is had one of my centre geraniums have rooted over winter. The rest are looking healthy, so I'm hopeful that they will root at some point, but the rose centre geranium's rooted pretty well now, so here it is, all potted on, ready to give to my friend. That smells gorgeous already. So this one's bagged by the lovely Anne, who I'm going to meet with while I'm off on half term, so it's looking really good. So that's that one. And while I was doing a bit of a tidy up of my plants in the conservatory, one of the leaves snapped off from the African violet. So, well, not wanting to teach anyone to suck eggs, but it's actually quite easy to root African violet from a leaf like that. So they just tend to drop off once in a while anyway. If you pop them in soil, they root quite well. So I'll pop that one in to see if that one will root as well. And it sounds like Lee's ready, so let's get going. Hi, good evening. I showed you a bit earlier when it was still daylight how the hat turned out that I'd been working on, so I'm pleased about. And so we're out and about earlier today. It was freezing cold and the hat kept my head lovely and warm, so I'm very pleased with that. And then I thought it would be nice to make, I'll do two things: to make a scarf to go with the hat in the same wool, but to try a different technique. So still a nail binding stitch, but different to the one that I've done before. So this one, I'm afraid I don't know the name of the first stitch, but this would be probably Coptic stitch. Excuse me, just had my tea. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes showing you how I have been making the scarf. So it's a bit tricky to show the beginning now, so I was experimenting myself because I've not done this particular stitch. Well, I had a go more than 2, maybe 3 years ago, and didn't get around to finishing it, so I'm going to have another try, but it's going okay so far this time. And the wool's lovely, like really warm, soft, stretchy, really nice Shetland wool. So that's what I'm going to try and do. So I'm going to stop chatting, point the camera down so that you can see what I'm working on, and talk you through how I've been doing the nail binding Coptic stitch to have a go at making a scarf to go with my new hat. Super, so I've got the camera angled down now. So this is the wool. Really nice wool. I suspect I'm going to have to let Rasha in a moment if she starts barking. We'll see. She wants to go outside. Anyway, this is the scarf so far. And you can probably see it looks quite a lot like knitting, but it's not knitting, it's still knotting. So, but anyways, it's quite a nice stitch, not too hard to do. So I just thought I'd show you how I'm working with this. So it's a similar idea to before. You chop off sections of wool and feed them through, so I'm about halfway through a row. So with this particular one, you pick up the previous stitch, so you kind of have a cross, I don't know if you can see that, okay, a little cross through the needle, the wooden needle. I'm still using the same wooden needle. Pull that through, and then there's a bit of a wiggle at the start of the run to get the loop all the way through, and then not super tight, but I've just made a stitch here. So that's my next stitch in the row, and then I go a little bit further along and go through the next stitch along, come back so stitching right to left on this one, but moving left to right, so it's kind of crossing over all the time. And if you can see that okay, so another cross, pull that through. I can hear Rasha. I knew that would happen. and there's another stitch. So you bring the wool stays in front of the needle so that the wool is behind the stitch at the end. I'm just going to put that through there so I know where I was. I'm just going to go and let the dog in. Okay, the dog is in. I am back. Right, so I'm just going to take you to the end of this row. So again, just keep going. So it's feeding through, making the loop with the wool behind the loop, and then through the next stitch. Oh, excuse me. Make sure you keep the needle in front of the wool to make the stitch. And the next one through, and the next one through. So just repeating the same action until I get to the end of the row. So I am a little bit unclear myself how to correctly move on to the next row, because I'll show you in a minute, but the first part of the scarf ended up getting slightly narrower at one point because I seemed to be more or less losing a stitch each time. So then I increased again a little bit, somewhat ad hoc, but it still looks okay. It's not perfect, but it still looks okay. There's the odd stitch that didn't quite go the right way. So I'm just going to pull so the wool tail is nearly doubled up on the part I'm working with, so just need to make that longer on the needle, a bit like with normal sewing, and then take a little bit of the twist out. You see there's a bit too much twist on there, so I'm just taking a bit of the twist out. So with this technique you do need to modify the twist a little bit sometimes. Maybe sometimes it needs a bit more, sometimes a bit less. Anyway, lovely. Right, so I'm back on. So it's actually, let's see, but there's almost a double layer of stitches as you go along, and it's the back part that I want. So it's going into the back and then coming back to the left side to make the cross between the two stitches behind. But so is the back that we want, back 2 stitches, and then pulling it through. And again, so picking up from the back, right to left, go through the cross, needle in front of the wool, pull it through. We're nearly at the end, so again, through to the back, through the cross, needle in front of wool, pull it through. And then I think one more there at the end. Right, so before I carry on, so I've done that, haven't I? So, okay, so as I say, it's not perfect by any means. If I lay it down, you can probably see it started off wider, it got a little bit narrower, so it increased again, and it got a little bit narrower, so it started to increase again. And on that side it's a bit more increased, but I don't mind, I don't need it to be perfect, so I'll make it a little bit of a feature that it's got a little bit wavy edges. So I'm not going to increase that, I don't think, anymore at the moment, because it's already a little bit wide. But what we do need to do is loop through just one more time, and what that does is it gives me a double stitch to make a new stitch when I turn the work round. So I don't know if you can see, so I've made a loop there. I'll leave it a bit bigger so it's a bit easier to see. Turn the work around, and then I can probably put it a little bit tighter there. So then that means that when you do come around, you need 2 stitches to make the new stitch. So then I've now got that loop and the end of the last stitch, go through the back, right to left, make sure it's not really tight, but just reasonably tight. Pull it back, and that's the first stitch on the new row. So it'll look a little bit weird, to be honest, so put it a little bit tighter. So it looks a little bit messy, that first one. I don't know whether it should look messy, but for me it does. But I just carry on, so now go through the next loop, right to left, pull the stitch through. Okay, and then you have always the needle in front of the wool, and make your stitch, and then the next one. There we go, and then it's just literally just keeping on working. I found it really pleasant to work with. It's quite relaxing because it's not like conventional knitting where you're having to follow patterns and count lots of stitches and things. I'm just going to flip the camera around there. So yeah, so I've really quite enjoyed working with this. So not once you get in the flow of it, it's not too challenging to do, and it's nice seeing the work growing. And it's, as I say, it's a little bit like making the hats, so it's a little bit fluid, and even if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. You can adjust it and adapt, and I'll still end up with a scarf, and it'll be warm and it'll match the hat, and so I'm quite happy with that. So again, you've got nice little colour changes coming through the work there. So it's intentionally different colours working through. So yeah, so I'm quite pleased with that. So I hope you've enjoyed this little demonstration. I've got some thoughts about the next Sandra makes, which I'm going to ask for a little bit of help from Lee with. So I hope you look forward to that. And a little bit of a very, very different theme, but I'll explain more when I do the next Sandra makes. So we all get to a certain age, we need to look after ourselves better. So that's what I'm trying to do at the moment. So I'm going to share that with you on the next Sandra makes. The gardening stuff's still ongoing. I'll do an update as and when I can. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a bit of a gardening and knitting theme broadly this week. Hope you've enjoyed that, and if you have, please do give us a little like, maybe a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to the channel if you've enjoyed the content. You might want to get notifications if you want to see a bit more. So the themes will vary a little bit through the seasons depending what I'm working on, and so I've been speaking about also possibly getting back to making bread again. If I can, well, yeah, I have so many ideas and only so much time. This is where it can go a bit wrong. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And then obviously the general getting in better shape and things, which we'll be talking about more next week. So anyway, good to speak to you all. I hope you're all keeping well, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on the next Sunday Sandra Makes. Bye for now.